Good evening. Welcome to Live United. Living United, an opportunity to hear a lot about the different things going on here in the Monadnock region that make a difference in the lives of our citizens. Not only do we work with a number of agencies, but within our very own organization of the United Way, we work with volunteers. And today I'm joined by Nikki Sovereign. Nikki is our volunteer coordinator and our administrative specialist at the United Way. And welcome, Nikki.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly.
It's kind of fun to have my colleague here on the show with me. And talking about something that's really part of our tagline, to give, to volunteer, and advocate. And, we do have some pretty amazing volunteers that participate at the United Way.
We really do, and I feel so fortunate to be able to coordinate them in my role. Volunteering is near and dear to my heart. From the time I was just a little girl, I was in Girl Scouts, and volunteering is part of my DNA, so it feels great to be able to give back to those who give back in a way. So as you know, and as hopefully our audience knows, Monadnock United Way relies on volunteers so heavily. From the time that we raise money through our campaign, which is largely a volunteer-driven process, to the way that we give out the funds that are raised to our different agency partners, the allocations process is largely volunteer-driven as well, to throughout the year through different volunteer projects. We have lots of different opportunities for people to get involved, to give back. Yeah.
So let's just talk about the profile of a volunteer, because I don't think there's any single age group or any singular group really out there in the community that represents a volunteer at the United Way. We are really a mixture of ages, people from different backgrounds that are really showing up and giving back to the community in a very significant way.
Absolutely. I get requests from all different age groups and profiles, as you said, whether it be a classroom teacher from an elementary school who wants to get her kids out in the community to a retired senior who is just looking to give back with a little bit of extra time that they have in their hands. Or maybe it's an incredibly busy executive, business executive or CEO who really feels strongly about corporate social responsibility and wants to engage their corporation or even just their executive staff in volunteer work. It takes all types. We also get a lot of volunteer support from the drug court program, Cheshire County Drug Court program. So we get a lot of hardworking volunteers who are out to give back to their community. So I love it.
The value of that is incredible. Mm-hmm. They've done a lot of studies on this. I think it's almost $23 per hour that it's valued at now when someone gives them volunteer time. And one of the things we often say on the show is if you can't afford to give financially, giving time to our agencies, their boards, giving time through the United Way to these different projects going on, it's just an incredible opportunity for the individual, but more importantly for the person who's on the receiving end of that. And I think, we've just had some events occur, and you're going to talk a little bit about that and share a story with us, which I think is really important for people to hear, because I think oftentimes we may feel like, wow, I don't really have the time to do this. And sometimes it can be, a half hour or 10 minutes that you give, and it can just make a difference.
Definitely. And so one of the projects that happened earlier this year is called the First Day Project, and that is a project that was recently initiated by Monadnock United Way, actually with the support of an intern, which is essentially another volunteer from Keene State College, to collect school supplies and backpacks for elementary school students. And we're starting with here in the Keene area, looking at our statistically lowest income schools. So this past year we were able to serve 250 students at Franklin School through the help of our community, through the help of local businesses and just generous donors, collect new backpacks and school supplies for every single student there. And that was, it was supported by the Keene Police Department largely, and just the way that the community rallied around this cause was super helpful. And whether it was people who were able to donate a physical backpack or a box of pencils, or it was the folks who came in. We had lots of volunteers come in and count out and sort school supplies. Every little bit of volunteer time made that project possible. It's amazing what you can do on a shoestring when you don't have when you have the support of volunteers.
And the community, and I think that was so important in that project. I do know that we have an upcoming show where Chief Costa is coming in, and he'll be talking about that particular project and some of the other work that he's doing in partnership both with the United Way and the larger community. All great service. You have that wonderful project. You know, one of the other neat ones that I've seen is the shoebox project, and that's where I said, somebody, if you have 10 minutes and a few dollars, you can put together personal items in a shoebox. You drop it off, and it's going out and it's serving somebody potentially at 100 Nights, at the women's shelter, different establishments, housing stabilization, where people perhaps need some personal products.
That's right, yeah, and the Shoebox Project is a great opportunity for people to give back all year long, whether it's, you know, springtime when you're doing spring cleaning, or it's wintertime when you're thinking especially about people who might be cold and have transitional housing and need extra support. The Shoebox Project is a great way to just chip in just a little bit, and the United Way actually does have a surplus of empty shoeboxes, so if anybody has some supplies to donate but need a shoebox, you know where to find us.
So you have the Shoebox Project, but we just had a day where people could really give a little bit more than 10 minutes or an hour. It was in most cases, I believe, about a half day that different corporate groups and school groups and people just really gave back to the community. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the Day of Caring is one of my favorite days of the year. It took place on September 23rd this year, and essentially the way it worked this year is similar to the past 10 years we've been doing it now. Basically, nonprofits applied for. They sent in applications for different service projects. So maybe they needed help cleaning up their garden, or tidying up their attic, or painting their playground, or something of the sort. So they would submit applications for projects, and then volunteer teams from local businesses, organizations, schools even, would submit volunteer team applications. So I had the fun job of playing matchmaker between these nonprofits and these organizations or businesses who want to serve. So I was able to match about 60 volunteers to 11 different service projects. Most of them were in Keene. We had one out in Peterborough as well. And they were mostly half-day projects that were done by predominantly employees of local businesses that were given permission to get out in the community for half a day and give back. It was amazing how much work was accomplished. I estimated between all the volunteers about 210 service hours, and with that rate of about $23 an hour that you mentioned, over $4,800 worth of work was accomplished for all these nonprofits who might not have the budget to do these projects otherwise.
And more importantly, it's not just the budgets for the agencies. When I've talked with the agencies about this, one of the things they've said is it's the things we don't have the time to get to because we're trying to deliver our service. So all of those little maintenance needs, you know, cleaning out old paint cans from the basement or cleaning up the gardens, it's the little things that they just don't have the capacity to sometimes accomplish in their day-to-day work because it takes away from serving the client. So it becomes a critical part of their service delivery, and I think we forget that, you know, we think, oh, we're doing something nice for the community. We're doing something that goes far beyond just that one little service organization to really, again, meeting the needs of our citizens out there. So tell us, and I think we have some pictures.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit, while Dave pulls those up, tell us about the Day of Caring and what went on with that. And
Sure, yeah. So it would be great if we could get the photos up. I can talk a little bit through some of the different projects that were done and where some of the volunteers came from as well.
Great.
So here we can see a team of 5th graders from Fuller Elementary School in Keene, and they serve the Keene Parks and Recreation Department there. You can see all those weeds in their hands. They were weeding the War Memorial Garden outside of the Recreation Center, and they had a bunch of fun doing that.
Look at those smiling faces.
Yes, and there's a team from Abtech Manufacturing Company. That's a company based out in Swansea, big supporters of Monadnock United Way, and there they are all dressed up in their volunteer T-shirts at the community kitchen. They did some painting in the community kitchen's office, which before this project, apparently the office was several different funny colors, and thanks to these volunteers, they made it all one color.
That's great.
And there is United Way's own Cameron Tees. He's our Director of Resource Development, and he helped out at Rise for Baby and Family on Washington Street in Keene. Apparently they had suffered some water damage due to a lightning strike that hit their building and some leaks, so they had to tear everything out of their closet and repaint it, and so their Cam is helping to put that closet back together.
And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where there just isn't always time for some of these little projects that happen over the course of a year, and just
Sure.
regular maintenance.
Yeah, and there are two volunteers from the community. They work locally, and there they are serving at the Keene Daycare Center. They have a nature path at the Keene Daycare Center that runs behind. It had been a bit overgrown, so these volunteers helped with hedge clippers and such to make the path usable again. And there's another volunteer at Keene Daycare Center. I believe this one is from Electronic Imaging Materials, so they're also a huge supporter of Monadnock United Way. And so this brave soul chose to drill holes in some of the tires. You might have seen it in kids' playgrounds. They have tires that kids like to play on, but to keep them from filling up with water, they need holes in them. So that's not an easy job, but this volunteer was up for the task.
Nice.
And this is a nice, strong team of volunteers, again, from Electronic Imaging Materials. And these folks were out at the River Center's Community Wood Bank. And that's been relocated, actually, to the Peterborough Town Garage. And so this Community Wood Bank is available for low-income individuals who might need heating assistance during the winter. And there are the fifth graders again at Fuller Elementary School, goofing around a little bit as they did their service, but they really had a good time getting out and giving back.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is, volunteerism, the nice thing about it is you're accomplishing something for the community, but you're having a great time while you're doing it. In every single one of those pictures, we see smiling faces. We see people feeling good about what they're doing and enjoying their time together. So that's one of the neat things about volunteerism that we forget sometimes, and that's why it's so important to get involved with that, whether you can give just a little bit or give a lot. Plus, we have really cool T-shirts that Nikki's going to share with us here.
I bet those volunteers are smiling about their very neat Live United by Serving T-shirts. These were so generously donated by the Mountain Corporation, local T-shirt company here. And they contributed to our Day of Caring by just showing the volunteers that they're really valued through that.
And they definitely are, and those are just wonderful, wonderful T-shirts. That's one of the nice things too about really coming together in a volunteer effort is everybody has a little bit of a different role, and you can find your place in it. And you can do it alone. You can do it as part of a team. We saw that, a couple of people working together to whole teams working together.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other volunteer opportunities. You don't have to wait for things like Day of Caring or the Day of Service projects like the First Day project. We've got the Shoebox project going on year-round. We have reading nooks now in different locations where people can be trained to be a tutor. We have one in Hinsdale, one here in Keene at Harmony Lane, where people can be trained to volunteer to read and be tutors for young children, birth to 5. Which is just fabulous. So plenty of ways people can reach out to you. Is that correct, Nikki?
Yes, and I guess on that note, I wanted to share that I think it's really important for volunteers to find an opportunity that's meaningful to them. One really powerful story that came out of this year's Day of Caring is a volunteer who served at Monadnock Center for Violence Prevention. It wasn't pictured here earlier, but this volunteer followed up with me after she did her project. She worked with a team of coworkers to decorate and set up a space, a children's playroom for children of the clients at Monadnock Center for Violence Prevention. And they did a wonderful job making this room just look comfy and cozy and inviting to children. And this volunteer wrote to me saying that the timing of the Day of Caring was really powerful this year because it fell just after the 1-year anniversary of her mother's passing. And so she was feeling pretty blue, really missing her mother, but through the service project, she really felt like her mother was being honored and remembered. She knew that her mother would be very proud of the accomplishment of the service that was done that day, and so this opportunity was especially meaningful to her. And so those are the types of stories that really warm my heart, make me love what I do, and really reinforce the importance of volunteerism. You know, it's not just about giving back to someone else, but it's also about nurturing your own soul and making sure that you take care of yourself and really feel connected to this world.
And I think you said that very, very well. You know, it's funny, I get to work with the volunteer allocators extensively, and one of the things that they do during that process as they're deciding how the funds that are raised through the United Way will be invested back out into the community is they visit different services, and I would say 100% of them, after visiting services, not only end up volunteering for the United Way, but somehow, because of the personal satisfaction attached to it that you're talking about, end up on the boards or somehow involved in one of these different agencies that they've perhaps visited. And I know all of our allocators from the last process have connected with other services in different ways, whether it's giving a few hours of time or actually giving a year to 3 years of their time through board membership and things. And that is one of the things that are, you know, we have a lot of volunteers that come through the United Way, and we rely on our volunteers for the campaign, for the allocations process, for these days of service to the community. But our agencies are constantly in need of volunteers. I can't think of a time where they're not. They usually struggle to find enough board members. They're struggling to find people to come in and do those little projects. Parents are great at trying to do that at some of the centers where there's perhaps family supports. Sometimes it's not quite enough.
Sure.
So your role is critical. How do people reach out to you if they're in a school program, or they're in a corporation, or they're an individual out in the community who says, I want to feel some of that. I want to not only feel the giving, I want to feel that satisfaction. How do they reach you?
Sure. So I'm always happy to help coordinate either individuals or groups, whether it be from a school or from a corporation or any type of group, any size. Help match them to a volunteer opportunity that works for them and their schedule. I kind of serve as a liaison between United Way, our partner agencies, other nonprofits. So I'm happy to work with folks one-on-one to find that good opportunity. So people can reach me either via email. That's usually the easiest way. It's Nikki, N-I-K-K-I, at MUW.org, or over the phone, 603-352-4209. And our office is open 5 days a week, so you can also just pop on in during business hours, and I'm usually around to field questions.
I think you also have, we have a Facebook page. People can go on our Facebook page at Monadnock United Way, and you're usually the first to see that, so you'll connect them potentially to these different projects. So they don't have to have a project in mind when they come in. You can help with that. But you also have a guidebook. That you've put together, I know, with some different suggestions in it, and you certainly can get that off to people if they have an interest in a project. I do want to, again, highlight that, you know, lots of times I think we wait until there's a disaster or a catastrophe to get out there and volunteer. And that's important to mobilize and still volunteer during those times. But the need is always there for volunteers.
Absolutely.
It is year-round, day-to-day. And I think the other thing is that sometimes we think, you know, we have to travel a long way to really help, you know, in those situations. And lots of times it's right in our own backyard.
Definitely, and I think volunteering year-round is what builds a stronger community that is more resilient in the event of a disaster or a crisis that hits us, to have those really strong social connections with each other between all different sectors of the community. That's what makes us thrive. And Yeah, and certainly people don't even really need to leave their workplace to do a volunteer project. I have opportunities for folks to coordinate, some sort of food drive or other sort of volunteer activity within their own workplace. So you don't even have to leave the office or take time off of work to give back. So happy to coordinate on any level and opportunity, yeah.
So we would encourage that. What do you have coming up for the future? Because we've just had this day, you just had the First Day project, we've got the Reading Nooks launched in Hensdale and in Keene. What else is coming up that people could get involved with?
Well, for the First Day project, we are always collecting school supplies, backpacks and school supplies. I'm happy to share a list of exactly what we're looking for. We've received great support from big companies, actually, like Walmart and Target so far, stepping up and donating to next year's project. Next year, we're looking to serve both Wheelock and Fuller elementary schools through that project. So that's a great opportunity, especially with the holiday season coming up. There are lots of different food drives and pantry drives that our partners are going to be organizing and running, so I know that they'll need volunteer support. And also, Monadnock United Way just released a new strategic plan, or will be very soon, and with that, we know that volunteers will be pretty central to that, so I think people should stay tuned for a different volunteer programs that'll be coming out of that.
And I know we have the allocations process coming up. And for people that aren't familiar with that, that is where a team of volunteers from the community, approximately 36 of them, are working on looking at all the different applications we receive for funding support through our donors, and deciding how that money will be invested back out in the community. If you would like to be involved with allocations, again, you can reach out to Nikki. You can also contact me, Kelly, at Monadnock United Way, and we will connect you with Bill Stevens and Mike Kowalczyk, who are the co-chairs of the committee that does that whole process. And there's training that involves about 50 to 60 hours of volunteer time that those folks put in. So it's a pretty amazing process. I know people that end up volunteering for the United Way always tell us they become lifelong contributors, and not just financial donators to the United Way, but they have a lifelong connection to the United Way. So it's a very interesting thing when you think about it, that just by giving our time and feeling good about that, that we somehow develop that social connection that you're talking about.
And every hour makes a huge difference. So.
Absolutely. So I know you have the chief coming on the show, and that you'll be talking with him.
Yeah, I'll be in your spot.
You'll be in my spot, which is great. And we have lots of good things and opportunities for people to be involved out there, available through the United Way, and available at any of our partner agencies. Again, you can reach out to Nikki. You can reach out to me, preferably Nikki, because she manages the volunteers, but really to find out what are those available opportunities that exist out there with the service providers. So those are any of the human service agencies in the area. And we even bring volunteers into locations who are not receiving funding through the United Way, but that are just non-funded organizations. Both the Reading Nooks in Hinsdale and at Harmony Lane are projects that are community-based, that involve Keene State College students and RSVP, volunteers. So it really is all about community and building community. Any last thoughts for us, Nikki?
I encourage people to think creatively about their different volunteer opportunities. There are so many ways to give back, and it doesn't have to be the run-of-the-mill, go and pick up trash for an hour type of thing. I really encourage people, even if they say, I'm interested in volunteering, but I'm not sure how, I'm happy to work with them to answer that question.
And they can be any age, any ability, any person that's out there to be involved. Well, great. I want to thank you, Nikki, for coming on the show and talking about this important issue, because it's really something that makes a difference out in our community. And I would like to thank you, audience, for joining us. I encourage you to tune in next week. Nikki will be talking more about volunteer work and interviewing some folks that are very involved with that out in the community. So I just want to remind you, give, volunteer, and advocate. Thanks for joining us.